Welcome to Space Startup News Live. It's a live stream that I do every week at the same time. So thank you for joining. And in this live stream, I just go over the videos I've done this week. So typically, I do 2 dedicated videos on a subject. I did a roll-up midweek roll-up of space news, and then I do the live stream. So it's a good way to give your thoughts and opinions on the videos I've done this week, to ask any questions, and any chat messages I'll answer. I'll try to answer on any topic in space news at all. So this week, start with the first video I did, which is Rendezvous Robotics, which is a brand new company that's just come out of stealth. Came out of stealth in September with $3 million of seed round funding, and they are working on self-assembling robots in space, allowing them to build very large structures just from like Lego pieces. You can think of them as Lego pieces. And if we bring up some images just to give you an idea, this is from the website. So you can see all these little tiles. So they're basically flat packed in the vehicle. You can see them here. They're all stacked together, and then they're released. You can see them being released here, and then they're able to self-assemble into large structures. And the way that happens is, and you can actually see them on the International Space Station. Here they are, and basically they have these permanent magnets on the edges, and they have a lot of sophisticated sensors and accelerometers. So as they're tumbling in space, the magnets kind of attract all the other tiles, and then they bond together, connect together, and you can create these very large structures. So that's the basic idea, and they've been tested, I think, twice on the International Space Station, and they've got other tests planned. Another one on the space station. They've flown on the Blue Origin suborbital flight. They've flown on 0G. Look at this one here. This is actually the creator and the co-founder of the company, Dr. Ariel Ekblad, and she came up with technology which is called Tesserae. And I think in the video I say what it is. It's tessellated electromagnetic space structures for the exploration of reconfigurable adaptive environments, Tesserae. So it's just these tiles, and they're able to connect, self-assemble. So you can use them to build large structures. They can repair themselves, they can reconfigure, and if you keep adding tiles, you can just grow structures to make them bigger and bigger. So, for instance, here's an example of a little craft made from the tiles. So the tiles, as you can see from the International Space Station example, if I can bring it up, they're quite small at the moment, but they can be made up to, say, 5 meters, so they fit into the fairing payload. But you want to try and use all the volume if you can. So at 5 meters, you could build very large structures just by flat packing lots of them together. And so that's the idea of the Tesserae system that's been developed by this new company called Rendezvous Robotics. Oh, I think we've got a comment already. Martin's asking, how do you self-propel into position? So that was one of the questions people were asking. I didn't really go into the video, but the way it works is they call it quasi stochastically, which just means quasi randomly. When they're released, I think in the patent they mentioned about having some kind of net or some kind of constrained volume. They're in a constrained volume, and due to the magnets, which are very powerful, they generally coalesce or move towards each other, and then they can snap into position based on the magnets. And in addition to the magnets, apparently there's some kind of mechanical clamping as well as like a backup. So in theory, the magnets are strong enough. The magnets are strong enough to hold them in position, and they can contain an atmosphere. The magnets are enough, but in addition, there's some kind of mechanical clamping as a backup as well. They do mention as well that there'd be an internal inflatable bladder. So if you've got the example of the spacecraft, I think I showed it here before. If I can bring it up. So this is like the spacecraft. You'd have an internal inflatable barrier, and that's where the air goes. So you can think as the tiles of just an external exoskeleton. Yeah, so I didn't really go into all the details in the video, but basically they thought about how they can use it for habitats as well. But yeah, I mean, this has been tested in space. It's the 5th generation of the technology, so it's and they're continuing to test as well. And in terms of the strength, you can see here. In terms of the strength, they will add more mechanical systems if they think it's needed. But at the moment, they've tested it against the atmosphere, for instance, the ISS, which is 14 psi, and they're strong enough to withstand that kind of pressure from the atmosphere. So yeah, they have the main system, which is electromagnets, and they have the secondary system, which is some kind of mechanical clamping system. Yeah, so it's obviously very sophisticated. I don't know exactly how the system works, but they patented this technology, and it's quite they've done quite a lot of testing on it. So in theory, it works, and also in practice, it works as well. So that's the idea of the technology, how it works, and yeah. So the idea is to build these very large structures in space. You can just keep adding tiles and create very large spaces. And yeah, it's worked on the International Space Station. And as you can see, here's the volume. So this is like a small, kind of like a crew dragging kind of craft. And you can see how it compares to space stations and so on. And also they've worked out like what the internal volume would be, which is 493 cubic meters, which compares quite favorably. It's like half the volume of the ISS. So it's not bad. So we'll see how it goes. It's now a space startup. Before it's just technology, MIT and so on, and NASA funding. Now they've got actual private investor money, $3 million, and they've just come out of stealth. So we'll see how it goes. And they've got testing planned on the ISS next year as well. So hopefully we'll see them in space, and we'll see larger structures. That would be very interesting to see. What more do I want to say on them? Let's have a look at some of the comments, see what people are saying about it. So, bring the comments here. So Planet X 8570 is saying, good find. I guess this could result in some truly immense space telescopes. Yeah, I mean, it could be used for telescopes, solar arrays, kind of Earth observation, and even like habitats as well in the future. So there's probably lots of applications. Joe Gogent is saying this will be perfect for the Falcon 9 to launch. Yeah, you just launch them flat packed, and yeah, they will self-assemble, and you can make them the diameter much higher, much wider. At the moment, they're just very small for testing on the ISS. But the next test in 2026 is 32 dinner plate size tiles, and I think they're going to try and make it fully enclosed. As you can see from some of the photos, if we can bring them up, they're not fully enclosed. You see that's the experiment. So the idea is with 32 of them, larger ones, they'll be able to create a complete spherical object on the ISS. So we'll see how that test goes, and that's scheduled for next year on the ISS. No, that's not what I want. This is what I want. And Wingsley is saying, I don't know if Rendezvous Robotics or Think Orbital or Sierra Space has the answer in this notion of collapsible structures for space, but I hope that America, Europe, India, Japan, etc. get funding, get organized, and get something like this going in space in the coming years. The possibilities are intriguing. Yeah, I mean, there's like endless possibilities if you can self-assemble very large structures in space. And the thing is, you can just keep adding the tiles. Imagine some kind of space observation thing or something, and you just keep adding tiles around the outside, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So, I mean, the possibilities are, amazing. But yeah, they've done a lot of testing, but now they have to kind of switch from testing to deploying large systems for actual missions and for commercial operations. Martin the Martian saying, maybe I'm missing something, but the system looks too flimsy. Do the units self-bolt together? If not, I doubt they would hold together magnetically when pressurized. So apparently they do hold together just from magnets, and they can hold an atmosphere. 14 psi, which is the atmosphere on ISS, just the magnets themselves. Apparently the force is, I think, hundreds of newtons per unit, because of these powerful permanent magnets. But in addition to the magnets, they also have some kind of mechanical clamping as well. So in theory, they do hold. They can hold an atmosphere. Think Orbital's welded system may be more difficult and permanent, but appears to be the better system. When Rendezvous Robotics have created, what Rendezvous Robotics have created looks more suited to large unpressurized applications. I'm sure that the very first applications will be unpressurized. That makes the most sense. And yeah, what you're saying makes perfect sense to me. Think Orbital is creating very strong welds in space. So that would be perfect for holding an atmosphere. And this kind of system seems more suited for unpressurized applications, at least at first. So yeah, I'm sure that's what they're going for first. They're going for Earth observation, communications, solar energy, that kind of thing, I believe. And Pedros is saying, I think that robots in space could also collect space junk and even use parts of this junk to build structures in space. Yeah, seems plausible to me. Actually, another company called Cislunar Industries is working on that idea. Basically, exactly what you said: collect space debris or space junk and turn it into useful materials. They're working on some kind of foundry which can process metals. So they collect space debris and then heat it and generate metals. They're also working on the lunar foundry as well. I mentioned them a few times in other videos. I want to do a video on Cislunar Industries at some point. And then Joe Gudgeon is saying, if I was a billionaire, I would be funding projects like this and not buying more yachts and expensive stuff like that. Yeah, if you got billions of dollars, this kind of project would be amazing, I think, just because of the structures you could create, space stations or giant telescopes in space and all kinds of amazing stuff. You could build something like that. So yes, well, keep an eye on that. It's just come out of stealth, so it's a brand new company, and yeah. So let's move on to my second video of this week, which is magnetic levitation on the moon. This is a project funded by NASA via the NIAC, which I think is NASA Innovative Advanced Concepts. So it got funding in the phase 1 round, and now it's funded for phase 2, which means they're going to go into more detail. And the idea is basically you can just roll these layers, this track, just onto the surface. You don't need to do a lot of site preparation. You can handle small bumps and inclines. You just roll it out, and then you can put these robots on top. These robots are dumb, right? They consist of a magnet, very powerful magnet, and then a cargo tray. That's it. So they're very, very simple devices. Here's an example. So here is the track. and then on top, floating on top, you have the robot. And basically, the track consists of several layers. If I can bring it up, is that the one I want? Yeah, here. If you look at this here, so on top you can see the robot, which is just these magnets laid out in like North Pole, South Pole, alternating. And then you have a graphite layer, which repels the magnets, so that causes the robot to float. And then you have a flex circuit layer, which is the electromagnetic coils that generates a magnetic field, and basically by modifying the magnetic field, you can propel the robot across the track. And then potentially you have a third optional solar film layer that can generate power that can be used to power the whole system. Or alternatively, you have external power from solar panels, nuclear, or whatever. So basically that's how it works. It's very simple. It's just a track and dumb robots on top. Here's another view of the robots floating on top of the track, and it's only very slightly above the track. And then you have some kind of robot to lay out the track, and you can just lay it out on the surface of the moon. And if you need to reposition it, you just roll it up and move it to wherever you want to put it next. So it's a very simple system. It's low mass, it's low maintenance, and the amount of power you need isn't that great. I think I say in the video, for a full-scale system, it'd be under 40 kilowatts of power, and that would be for, I think, 20 kilometers of track, and it can move 80 tons of regolith per day. And Vishnu Karma is saying, too much science fiction. Well, this is funded by NASA, and so I think it's almost ready to be tested on the moon or in space. It's already been tested, on the ground, and they're going to do a lunar regolith analog testbed system next year with phase 2 funding. They've done vacuum testing already, so it's been tested in lunar environments. I think I have an example here. So this is the kind of testing they've done already. So it's already been tested, and it's got phase 2 funding, and potentially could move on to phase 3 funding, which is actually flights on a lunar lander. And in terms of, I don't know if you're referring to the Tesserae for Too Much Science Fiction, that's also been tested as well. So these aren't just science fiction. These have actually received funding from NASA, and they've been flown on the ISS, suborbital flights, they've been through this kind of testing. So it is in the future, but it's not too far in the future. We're only talking like 3 to 5 years for some of these systems. So I wouldn't say it's too much science fiction. Yes, so here's another view. So you can see, looking like side on, you can see the track layer, and then you can see the robots on top. And then top view, looking directly down on the track, you can see these magnetic arrays that basically are used to propel the robot across the surface. So it's a nice, very simple system. That's an alternative to, I'd say it's more an alternative to a lunar rail than it is to lunar road. Because I think we're going to have roads on the moon first. Almost from the beginning, we're going to start doing site preparation. We're going to be moving debris and craters. So we're going to have roads. And they work very well for very small habitats and bases. But once your base gets a bit bigger, there's more traffic, there's more landing pads. You've started doing resource mining, so you've got regolith moving from one place to another, to the processing site, and you've got more scientists, and you've got tourism. There's a lot of traffic between different places. So lunar rovers start having problems with wear and tear, with dust accumulation, with all the dust floating around, and you want a cleaner system, Rails cleaner, but there's a lot of infrastructure and hardware. So this system is as I said, is low maintenance, and it's quite cheap as well. A single Starship could basically transport all the mass needed for a full-scale system, which I think is 30 tons or something like that. And 40 kilowatts of power isn't huge. So for low energy, low mass, low maintenance, you could have a fully transport system that could deliver 80 tons of regolith daily. So I think it's a very intriguing system, and it's funded by NASA. And yeah, I think it's a potentially very interesting system. So we'll see how it goes. The current funding lasts until next year. That's phase 2, and then there'll be a final report. And then NASA will decide whether there'll be a phase 3, which will be transitioning over to commercial applications. So either it'll get a mission on a lander, a lunar lander paid for by NASA, or potentially it could be used by commercial companies, could take on the technology, could license the technology, and then use it for commercial applications. So we'll see how that goes. And I say in the video, the objectives for phase 2 are more prototype development of the robots on the tracks, more environmental testing, making sure it can handle radiation, it can handle harsh conditions on the moon, the temperature swings, more fleshing out the technology roadmap, make sure there's no gaps in the technology, more simulations, and flight test opportunities. So they've got a bit of money, so maybe they can get a zero-G test, they get Blue Origin suborbital test, and yeah. And I do say in the video that it can carry 33 kilos per square meter. So you basically got these cargo trays with a magnet underneath. So you just put your regolith or your payload on the tray, and it can be 33 kilos per square meter. So a real system would have thousands of these robots, and each robot will just levitate over the track and move along the track. The speed is about 0.5 meter per second, so quite slow. But during the day, it could travel many kilometers. So I think maybe 20 kilometers or so. Basically, whatever it is, you just have lots of these robots on like a conveyor belt system. Perfect for mining. You just basically dump the regolith onto these cargo trays, and they just get moved to wherever your processing site. So that's the idea. Let's have a look at what people are saying about it. So user SZ5SLM says, will the system withstand years of bombardment by meteoroids and the extreme temperature changes of the lunar night and day? Well, that's why they're doing more testing. So they've already done some testing. I think you can see it here. So in phase 1, they've already put it into a vacuum chamber. I don't know if they've done the temperature swings. I know for phase 2, they're going to put it into a lunar regolith analog test bed. So they're going to like lay it down on like the equivalent of lunar regolith with all the dust and see how the system works. Apparently, they can have this sweeper robot that goes behind and just sweeps the track of any dust. So they've tested that already. So they're going to do a lot more of that testing in the phase 2. So Martin the Martian saying, consider the tons of material that will be needed to be moved very long distances during the growth of a lunar base. This appears to be a little more than specialized system. 600 meters of track and 30 kilos of load per square meter is a pittance when compared to the number of tons. A rail system would move over tens or even hundreds of kilometers. Would not the flexible track also form a barrier? It would be difficult for an astronaut or rover to cross without doing considerable damage to it. So the 30 kilos of load per square meter is per robot. You'd have thousands of robots on the track at once. I think it mentions in the in the video that it would be 1,300 robots for this full-scale system with a 20-kilometer track. So it's not just one robot at 30 kilos, it's thousands of robots at 30 kilos, which if you do the math, is like, 30 tons or whatever. So yeah, you just keep adding the robots. So that takes care of the amount of material you want to move. In terms of forming a barrier, well, yeah, it does form a barrier. Yeah, so you have to route it carefully so it doesn't go over roads or anything like that. It doesn't cut off anything like habitats. So yeah, you're just careful routing to avoid that, or you have to basically go around it or over it or something like that. I don't know. Yeah, it would form a barrier. So yeah, careful routing of the path. And so Flotsam Mike is saying, how do you control speed going uphill or downhill? How do you get anything uphill? Apparently it can handle inclines very, very easily, 45-degree inclines. So your rover is limited to 10, 15-degree incline because it can't get any traction above that. This system can handle 45-degree inclines. So, and in the video I showed, the video showed electromagnetic robots, magnetic robots, and they could handle almost vertical inclines. But this system apparently can handle 45 degrees, no problem. So in terms of speed, the speed is slow. I think it's just over half a meter per second, but you can still move a lot of material even at that speed over the day. And I think for lunar regolith, it's moving a lunar regolith, I don't think it's a problem. If you need more mass, you add more robots. I think that's the way you move more mass. It's not faster speed, it's just more robots. And the thing is, the robots are very, very simple. It's just magnets with a cargo tray. That's it. I don't think it's any more sophisticated than that. So the robots are very cheap and easy to build, and you just add more robots to the track. And Wingsley saying, wow, a mini maglev transit system for the lunar surface, we can dream. Yeah, so it's funded by NASA. So hopefully, as the system matures, they deploy some kind of system to the moon, just a test demo system, and take it from there. And the backer that choose says, skipping railroads and going straight to maglev, neat. Yeah, it certainly looks like a neat system. Maybe there's some gotchas or something like that. I don't know, but it's funded by NASA. NASA likes the idea, and this is the second phase. So they read the first phase 1 report, liked it, and funded it again for phase 2. Just $600,000, and it's a 2-year report, a 2-year study. There'll be another report next year, and hopefully that goes well, and there'll be a phase 3, which will be either transition to commercial opportunities or get a mission to the moon. So that seems very interesting. So in terms of, I'm not going to cover space news comments on here because I'm now doing a space news in the middle of the week. So any comments on that I will address next week. In terms of what I want to do next week, I'm going to do some more lunar stuff. There's been a number of NASA studies that have been either going to phase 2 or brand new studies. Some of them to do with the moon are quite interesting, so I'm going to cover some more of those probably next week, and I'll do some kind of startup as well. So I'm not quite sure exactly what that startup will be, but definitely I'm going to do more lunar infrastructure videos. One next week. I want to do more on lunar lavitubes as well. I've got some more to say on that. So yeah, that's my plans for the next week or so. And and I'm doing a space news in the middle of the week now on a Wednesday, and that's going to be straight to camera, so it's not going to be scripted. I'm just going to go over lots of different things that are happening in space news, and I'll answer any questions from the previous space news. So thank you for joining this live stream, and I will see you next week.